I got us adjoining rooms.
Hello.
Okay. This is civil. You look horrible. Go over there.
Before I delve into the scene you all just watched, how did you feel about it? Confused, intrigued, or frightened? I can understand your emotions if you are witnessing the scene for the first time. In fact, your emotions were probably heightened because you weren't sure what was going on. You were probably questioning why there was no music, why everything was so dark, and why there is a strange man pointing a gun at another. What you just witnessed was a snippet of the final episode of the Walking Dead TellTales series. If you are unaware, this is a tetralogy game franchise based around the Walking Dead universe, made by the team Telltale and Skybound. You might recognize Telltale for some of their other works, such as Minecraft Story Mode, The Wolf Among Us, and the Batman series with that one version of Joker that's such a goddamn twink. All of Telltale's games were known for being story-based games that relied on decision-making to shape your story rather than being a regular progressive game. Think Detroit Become Human, but much simpler. Arguably, the Walking Dead-inspired games are what set this creative team in motion. When initially released on April 24th of 2012, it took the media by storm, taking a beloved franchise and reinterpreting it into its own story with its own set of characters attracted many people to the series. There are many reasons why this game got so popular. It brought faces from the actual series, kept the feel of the show, and most importantly, it gave players a chance to shape the story how they saw fit. Being able to choose who you want to save in dire situations, and determining who you side with was what made players fall in love with the series, for better or for worse. This game really focused on giving players the chance to be part of the story and understand the world around them, and control a story they wanted. But choices can come with negative consequences. Besides being able to give players free will, this game reflected the pain of being the decision maker every time you made one. It showed you the consequences of your choices immediately after you made one, and not just with those pop-ups. And one part of this game really hits that concept home run. At the end of the game, a scene plays out that takes all your decisions and makes you reconsider everything you did up to that point in the game. That scene in question was the one I showed you at the start of the video. This scene is what truly made this game remarkable for what it was, and not just a game that gave people the opportunity to shape their world. It showed them how to ruin it as well, and how to think back on what you did. I am Psychedia, and today I will be reviewing the scene that changed our way to negatively reflect on your actions. Let's jump in, shall we? While The Walking Dead is all about decision making, it doesn't force anything upon you. While the scenarios that happen in the game are always meant to occur no matter what, the end result or fate in the characters is up to you, especially with the biggest character, Clementine. From the start of the game, you are introduced to her after the walkers start showing up. After saving her from her home, it's your overall goal from here to take care of Clementine, prepare her for the worst, and to show her how to defend herself against the apocalypse. She is with you throughout the entire game, and every decision can both positively and negatively affect her, even when you don't know it. The other characters, while major in the story, don't hit quite as hard as she does when it comes to relevancy, but even if you tell her everything that happens, she doesn't do the same to you. Later in the game, if you find a station wagon after escaping the House of Cannibals in that episode, within this car there are many goods and supplies ripe for the taking. Here, you get a decision of taking the supplies or leaving it behind. This is one of those decisions that the game forces upon you, and is more related to the morality than actions. Even if you don't take the supplies, the group you are with takes them anyways. One of these items being a walkie-talkie Clementine finds in the trunk. While unaware to the others, Clementine has been able to get in touch with someone on the other end of the line, a stranger. At the end of Chapter 3, you hear for a brief moment the stranger on the other end, but hides their identity and demands from Lee and Kenny. In Chapter 4, you can ask Clementine about this, but she acts clueless, saying it's just a friend. Little does she know the person on the other end is much worse than just a friend. In fact, this stranger is stalking the group in the shadows, nearly getting caught by Lee several times, only to miss him. So far, he hasn't made his presence fully known, but his threat lingers. It isn't until the end of Chapter 4 where the stranger kidnaps Clementine and takes her away from the group, resulting in Lee getting bit by a walker. From here, it's a race against the clock to reach Clementine before your infection turns you into a zombie. Not only that, but you are balancing the lives of others who come with you to save Clementine while making your way to her. Ben, the young fragile high schooler, will perish on the trek by impaling himself on the guardrail if you saved him previously, resulting in Kenny's death. The same happens if Kenny saves Krista earlier without Ben. Eventually, you are all on your own at the edge of the building where Clementine is held captive. While having escaped all these harsh monsters outside with intense music to hype up for what's to come, it all suddenly drops. Once you enter the building, all music vanishes as it's only you and your footsteps. The tension suddenly rises knowing you're about to reach the end of this madness. You eventually find the room Clementine is kept in, and before you can call out to her, he appears, the stranger, holding a gun up to your body, ready to pull the trigger if you make any sudden moves. While it can be a shock to see her kidnapper as sudden as it presents itself, the anticipation that was built up to this moment seems to fade into a sense of fear. This is the moment you have been waiting for, but you can't seem to be angry. This stranger who toyed with you the whole game, suddenly presented the way he is, it's frightening. It makes you truly fear what he has in store for you. I want to discuss the strangers as a character for a moment before diving into the scene itself. Let's start with his name. It isn't stated or revealed what his name is. Being simply referred to as the stranger lets us in on the monster we are with. When it came to other villains with the series, even the minor ones, we knew them by name, giving them a sense of identity within that massive evil. But without a way of identifying the stranger, it makes his intentions unknown and what he could possibly be processing in his head, making us more vulnerable to their actions. Secondly, his personality. He doesn't say much and never raises his voice. In fact, the entire time you are with him, he acts as if he is dead inside and has no mind of his own. Yet, without a sense of mind, he ends up convincingly to obey and listen to him, and makes him lower his defenses. I like to think the stranger is a mix between the walkers and a real human. He's teetering on the mindsets of both, even if he isn't infected, and that's what makes him scary. Moreover, the stranger's manipulation is evident in his actions and cryptic dialogue. From the moment he enters the scene, he gives out an aura of control, coercingly into a compliance without overt threats or force. His choice to remain nameless adds to his enigmatic nature, denying the player any foothold for his understanding his motives. Furthermore, the stranger's portrayal serves as a reflection of the harsh realities of survival in the post-apocalyptic world. By using the player's choices against them, the stranger becomes a chilling reminder of the consequences of moral ambiguity and the fragility of trust in a world overrun by chaos and desperation. He starts by overpowering Lee mentally, by making him feel insecure immediately. Without hesitation, he makes you drop and put down your weapons on a counter, to leave you empty and unable to defend yourself. Now he's almost had you in a checkmate only a few seconds into meeting him. But before you can process that even,
Let me out! Who's out there?
Quiet, please, sweetie.
your beliefs on the situation suddenly come true, and the stranger shows you his intent. He's trying to keep Clementine from the door being tied shut and then silencing Lee. It's all a sign that he wants to do something awful to you and keep her safe. Another thing I will point out is that he always points the gun at you, even when you both sit down. He is keeping you on a leash, one weighing the choices of life and death. Knowing your life's on the line, it makes it all the more worse, as he contemplates whether or not you deserve to take care of Clementine over him. The issue is, he's already made his verdict. He will be the one to tend to Clementine, and that is what he believes. Despite all the problems and threats he gives you, Lee and the player still proceed to try and help her, as they would talk their way through with them. But nobody could expect this kind of character to continue the way they did. Because when I say they are a judge against you, I mean it. They will ensure you to use all your choices against you. I said it earlier and I will say it again. This is the best scene in any video game that makes you regret the actions you've made. The moment you sit down when the stranger begins to put his judgment upon you, he immediately hits you with the big question.
Do you know who I am?
It's a question that depends on how you perceive it. Do you know them as a human being, or as the guy chasing you around the whole game? Well, it is up to you. What you don't yet know is what his motives are. After all, he doesn't know anything about you either. You and him should be on equal terms. But you aren't. In fact, you are much lower than you imagined. He knows what you are and the actions you used against him.
A few weeks back, there might have been a station wagon in the forest, full of all sorts of food, water, things you need to survive.
This is the first instance the game uses your actions against you. While this is an action that will come back to bite you either way, it still hits hard realizing what you thought was a mere abandoned car to get goods from something much greater. Stealing from it was the root cause of the stranger's actions against you, but how do you feel guilty about something that wasn't your fault? Sure, some players went along and helped others take from the vehicle, but if you weren't in that majority and refused to help, the blame should go to Kenny and Lily and the others, right?
I didn't take from you.
Your people didn't?
I didn't agree with it.
That's what Clementine said. Why didn't you?
You were coming back. The dome light was on.
We did come back. I said we did come back!
He does get mad at the others, yet his focus is on you, even if it wasn't your fault. After being told everything awful about you, he sees you as a villain who, even if stealing the supplies wasn't your fault, all your other actions are used against you. This is when he starts to barrage you with numerous accusations based on your actions you've committed in front of Clementine. Now, I love this part of the conversation because there is nothing you can do to avoid or stop him from blaming Lee for all these horrendous actions, and why he should take care of Clementine instead. Well, no matter what you do, the stranger will always blame you for something one way or another, depending on your actions. Even if you were a good person, he manages to use something against you.
You walked a little girl into a dairy full of sick people and let them get their hands on her. You lied to her about who you really are.
Or even if you were split trying to save characters, he will use who you saved and who you didn't to reconsider what outcome would be if you tried to help the other.
You let a woman who knew who you really were die to protect your secret. You let a boy get yanked out of a window and into the night so you could protect a pretty girl with a gun.
And what if you ended up murdering other characters for the better of the group? Not like he would understand your intentions in doing so. He doesn't need to hear it whether or not you thought you were justified.
You didn't care about that woman before holding her back so your friend could bash her dad's brains in? What about that boy who didn't make it out of... Crawford, was it? If it didn't hurt him, whatever you did hurt that girl in there.
In each accusation, the stranger diffuses any defense the player might attempt to muster. He doesn't offer room for explanations or justifications. Instead, he doubts over the player's every action, whether it's choices made in the moments of crisis, like the harrowing decision at the dairy farm, or the complex dynamics of relationships within the group, such as the divisive choices between Carly and Doug. The stranger weaponizes these instances to paint Lee as irredeemable. It's a chilling realization for the player trapped in a narrative where their agency is stripped away, forced to confront the consequences of their decisions with no resource for redemption. Throughout the interrogation, it becomes increasingly clear that the stranger's ultimate goal is to claim Clementine as his own. By exploiting Lee's perceived failings and portraying him as unfit to care her, the stranger seeks to justify his own sinister intentions. Every accusation serves to reinforce his belief that he alone is capable of protecting Clementine in this harsh world, and Lee is left defenseless against the barrage of accusations. The weight of his supposed shortcomings looms heavily, leaving the player grappling with these unsettling realization that their every decision has led them to this moment of reckoning, until a friendly face appears.
I'm glad too.
Before you can comprehend what he is doing, Clementine shows herself, having escaped her trapped confinements. The moment her face is shown, all the sense of regret in the player vanishes. I mentioned how the game makes Clementine your main focus throughout it, but after all the instances you have built up caring for her, this is the moment where it is set in stone. From being away from Clementine for so long, plus all the care you've given her, her sudden arrival makes all the attention of regret become a sense of hope when faced with her. With your mind's directive changed, you direct Clementine to grab a weapon and attack the stranger as you rush him. Now you are in control. After all the horrible things he made you listen and endure, it is time for you to take it into your own hands. With an aggressive battle, you can overpower the stranger and choke him out by pushing your buttons until they lose their life, and slump down to the ground dead. Well, to some players, that was the case. One issue with murdering the stranger like this is that it makes you a worse person than you were accused of. Amidst the chaos, you begin to realize that by succumbing to your urge for vengeance, the player becomes the very monster they were accused of being. The stranger's actions, however manipulative, find a disturbing validation in the player's actions, as they cross the moral line that they once hesitated to tread. In a cruel twist of fate, the player's quest for justice only serves to reinforce the stranger's narrative of Lee's moral decline. As life drains from the stranger's body, the player is left to grapple with consequences of their own actions, haunted by the knowledge that they have to become what they sought to destroy. And to the players who realize this ahead of time, they are able to stop themselves from fatally killing the stranger, hoping to spare something inside of them.
Die!
But it all becomes for nothing. Clementine pulls the trigger to save your life, and in the process, you see what your actions have done to you. While you have been focused on yourself the whole time, and the stranger has been focused on blaming you for everything, it finally comes into fruition when you finally see Clementine shoot the stranger. You taught her to use that gun, and you taught her how to defend herself and save your life. This murder was on you. And now you feel even worse than you ever did before, trying to keep that stranger alive. Maybe he was right, and it seems like even if he was, you've screwed up. And no matter what you can do now, you have to accept that you are a monster, and you can truly never fix your actions or make them good. You just have to deal with the consequences of them, while you regret everything that comes your way. TellTales The Walking Dead is one of the best examples of making any player regret the actions they make in a video game. While there are many story-based video games out there, Walking Dead TellTales does the best at it. While everyone knows that in these story-based games, it's impossible to be perfect, there are ways around it. The choices of what you seem fit for your group are up to you. Who do you side with? Do you side with the good people or the bad people? It's a huge decision that it impacts you the entire game. And in the face of with someone like Clementine, you have to be able to choose your choices wisely. And when you get presented with a scene as you were, The Strangers, it's an awful scene. One that makes you question everything you committed up to that point. Every single decision all comes flooding back to you in a horrible memory. This is the best way to make a player regret their own actions. And while I know for certain that there are other games that do these events quite as well, there's just nothing that hits as hard as Walking Dead TellTales does. This is truly one amazing scene. And I'm surprised there aren't many other games out there who take this concept of making the player regret everything they did, because it's truly phenomenal in how it plays here. And I think it's safe to say that a scene like this will always be remembered fondly by how dark, twisted, yet memorable it was. This is Psychedia, and this was TellTales The Walking Dead franchise and the scene that made players regret all their decisions. Thank you for watching this. This video was a lot of fun to make, and I'm changing up my style a bit with it, and I hope to see you all again soon. Goodbye for now.